New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
New Thought Media Network is excited to present Divine Science Everywhere, Fridays at 2 p.m. Mountain Time and 4 p.m. Eastern. Come explore a modern experience of divine science with Reverend Joy Fletcher, Reverend Jeff Radcliff, and Bishop Durrell Watkins. Join us as we open our eyes to divine science everywhere we look. Fridays on New Thought Media Network.
Welcome. Happy Friday. I'm Reverend Joy Fletcher, and I'm so happy that you could join us today, either live or a rebroadcast on YouTube. I currently serve as a president of Divine Science Ministers Association and most recently, International New Thought Alliance. Thank you.
She's mad with power. She has taken over everything. If you think your organization is safe, don't take it for granted. She's coming for it. That Joy Fletcher, the organization taker over, or that she is. Actually, both organizations are super lucky to have her. I'm Durrell Watkins, the senior minister of the Sunshine Cathedral in Fort Lauderdale, and the current president of Divine Science Federation International. I'm also an auxiliary bishop of the Global Justice Institute. I'm about to be term limited out, I think late September. That's it for me as the head of DSFI, but I'll always be a member, and it's been a great 6 years. Before we get into a conversation with our amazing guest, super fascinating, doing amazing work in the world, we do a couple of things. We always have a little guided meditation. We have a little history education business, and then we get right into the interview. But we start with centering, and who leads us in that, of course, is the Reverend Joy Fletcher.
Thank you. So let us begin today by settling in the space, taking a slow, gentle breath, and acknowledge the presence and power of the divine, of God, of love. It is omnipresent, omnipresent, and you are in this omnipresence, and you always are. This omnipresence is divine love, unconditional love, love that does not judge, for it is of God. And love is more than a feeling. It's more than an idea. Love is an action. Love is a verb. Throughout history, spiritual teachers have reminded us that faith becomes transformative when it moves from our hearts to our hands and feet. Compassion becomes visible when we reach out, listen deeply, serve generously, and recognize the sacred worth of every person. beginning with you. For as you acknowledge the sacredness that indwells within you, you are able to recognize the sacred and the divine in others. In spite of how they may appear, how they may behave, how they may express themselves, behind that and through that is the sacred beauty of God. Dear ones, remember that this is true about you. It can be easy to love the concept of humanity, but the greater invitation is to love the person standing in front of us, the neighbor, the stranger, the one who is struggling, the one who feels forgotten, and the one whose story is different than our own. Every person carries this spark of divine presence, and everyone deserves dignity. Every single person matters. To paraphrase scripture, you might be entertaining angels unaware. We are the hands and feet and the heart of the divine. Many spiritual teachers have taught us that our work, our mission is to be of service to one another. It matters not what you can express or quote or think about. Rather, it's the most important thing, which is not a thing, is to be in service to one another, to judge not, to look beyond the appearance. So, how are you to show up in the world? How can you serve humankind? How can you express the divine? Let us not be just observers, but participants in a healing and uplifting life. Let us affirm together. I recognize the divine presence in every person. I open my heart to compassion and understanding. I am willing to be an instrument of love in action. I bring hope where there is discouragement, kindness where there is need, and light wherever I go. I am grateful to know that even small acts of love can and does transform lives. May we remember that every act of compassion, every gesture of kindness, and every moment of service becomes a living expression of spirit. And so it is.
Yay. Thank you, Reverend Joy. Before we get too much deeper into things, just want to acknowledge the obvious that Reverend Jeff has been abducted by aliens, and we don't know if and when he will ever be returned. But here's my diplomatic mission to the intergalactic whatevers. Please bring him home safely. Actually, he is dealing with some medical stuff. He's getting better and better, and he'll be with us very soon. And in the meantime, we see healing light penetrating his life and joy sustaining him, until he gets good news from all those laboratory types people, all those white coats. And whoever you have on your mind and heart today, we wish them well, and we know, regardless of conditions, regardless of circumstances, that each and every one is part and parcel of the divine. Each and every one is whole, perfect, and complete. And for this, we give thanks. Amen. I want to tell you about some people. I always do, right? That's my shtick. I get to tell you about stuff, about the past. And the first one I want to tell you about is, well, first of all, I believe today is the anniversary of the martyrs of Pulse. Remember, there was in 2016 a nightclub in Orlando. Mass shooter killed 59 people. He left 53 wounded. He himself died in all of that. And so it was a big deal here in Florida, a big deal in the world. It was the biggest act of violence against LGBTQ plus people in U.S. history, surpassing even the 1973 mass killing of people in a gay bar in New Orleans. It was also America's deadliest mass shooting by a single shooter until the record was broken in Las Vegas in 2017. So we are aware of violence in our world and the need for healing. All right. To the new thought people I want you to know about, there is Helen Wilmans. She was born in 1831. She lived until 1907. She was a proponent and teacher of mental science. She overcame difficulties to achieve notable success, but became the target of coordinated efforts to discredit her for her practice of distant treatments, treating the ill with prayer through the mail. Today, the efficacy of prayer, regardless of distance, is widely embraced, and Wilman's work is experiencing a revival of interest. But I think it's interesting that her work was so successful. You know, when people just do a thing, it doesn't matter, it doesn't make much of a splash, no one notices. But she was actually, her mental treatments, her prayer treatments were so effective that people who made their living treating people in other ways came for her. But she survived all that. And even though she was sort of discredited in her day, she's getting a revival of interest now, and well-deserved. Also, there's Evelyn Underhill, 1875 to 1941. She was actually an Anglo-Catholic writer and pacifist who focused on spiritual practice and Christian mysticism. That's where she sort of bleeds over into New Thought. The Anglican High Church people, they want to claim her, but she was also, her mysticism and her awareness of the oneness of all things and our oneness with the divine, that also puts her in our camp. She wrote, "Beauty is simply reality seen with the eyes of love." And of the practicality of communion with the divine, she wrote, "After all, it is those who have a deep and real inner life who are best able to deal with the irritating details of outer life." Those who have a deep and real inner life who can deal with all the messiness that seems to appear in the outer. Joel Goldsmith, 1892 to 1964. We love him in divine science. There are certain schools of divine science, especially the DC school. He is a big figure. Goldsmith was reared in a secular Jewish family, but both he and his father at different times experienced healing with the aid of Christian Science practitioners. And Goldsmith discovered that he seemed to have a gift for spiritual healing. He became a Christian Scientist and later started the Infinite Way movement, still going on. He stressed the practice of contemplative meditation. Goldsmith believed healing occurred from conscious contact with God. There is no service, ritual, dogma, or ceremony in the practice of the Infinite Way. Goldsmith students can practice any or no religion. He wrote, "God is felt as a divine presence or influence within." And then finally, Masahiro Taniguchi, who founded the Seiko Noe movement in Japan, where it has over 5 million members. It's also really big in Brazil, and they have a presence in the US. What is fascinating to me, other than their own great work and their syncretic sort of, Christian and Buddhist and New Thought, like it's all wrapped together for a really fascinating practice. But he was aided by divine scientists Mr. Holmes, Ernest's brother Fenwick. Fenwick, who of course was a divine science minister, he helped Ernest in the religious science movement. He had his own divine science ministry. And on top of all of that, he also helped Masahiro Taniguchi in founding the Seiko no E movement in its early days. So even though it is Seiko no E, there's a little touch of divine science in its history. Seiko no E has become a worldwide New Thought movement. Seiko no E doesn't ask people to give up any religious affiliation to be part of their system. And that way they are interreligious and trans-denominational. Taniguchi came to realize, and I quote, "All evil things are nothingness. They could never be the product of divine will, but of the human deluded mind," end quote. He also said everything that occurs in one's environment is a reflection of his or her mind. The same is true with one's manifestations. The human being is truly a child of God and is already immaculate and redeemed, end quote. People claim to be healed of diseases simply by listening to Taniguchi lecture. Seiko no E calls the impermanent and ever-changing world of appearance the phenomenal world. And Shinsokan is the meditation technique taught to help people experience the universal reality commonly called God. It really is just a form of spiritual mind treatment. It's meditation, it's visualization, it's affirmation, and it's all positive. So the Shinsokan is really just a form of treatment. I shouldn't say just, it is a form of treatment. True image is what Seiko no E calls one's true self, one's real identity, the harmonious and divine essence of all that is. And those are the New Thought people I want you to know about our history. And before we get into a fascinating conversation with a fascinating individual, I need to remind you that we are Divine Science Everywhere, and this is the New Thought Media Network.
Come expand your spiritual journey. Join us for Just the Talk, Sundays, 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Experience Unity Kitchener and Ottawa. Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Unity of Garden Park, New Thought Philadelphia, the Sunshine Cathedral, Unity of Savannah, and the Om Center for Spiritual Living. Come unleash your spiritual potential with New Thought Media Network.
We're back. Well, it is my honor to introduce our guest today, who is a minister whose understanding of service extends far beyond the walls of a sanctuary. Reverend Randy Fickey serves as a spiritual leader of Unity Southeast Kansas City and has become known for a ministry that brings compassion in action. He is committed to meeting people where they are, whether in shelters, neighborhoods, community spaces, or moments of crisis, offering hope, dignity, and practical support. His work reflects a powerful belief that no one should be forgotten, overlooked, or left behind. Through courageous leadership and a deep commitment to serving others, he has demonstrated what it means to put spiritual principles into everyday life. In recognition of his extraordinary ministry, Reverend Randy was honored with the 2025-2026 Light of God Expressing Award from Unity Worldwide Ministries, celebrating his embodiment of compassion, service, and transformative action. Today, we'll explore what it means to live our faith in the world, to serve with courage, and to recognize the sacred worth in every person. So please join me in welcoming Reverend Randy Fickey to Divine Science Everywhere.
Yay.
And we're so delighted you're with us.
Yeah, it's such an honor to be here with the both of you and with your audience, and just really excited for what Spirit will bring forth today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, one of our opening standard questions is what brought you to New Thought? What guided you? What happened? What
You
led you?
know, I always used to hear from laity and ministers. I was called into ministry, and I always thought that it was bogus. If I'm being honest with you, but in 2016, I had just a collision of events that led to a phone call from a friend whose daughter had fallen out of a dorm window, a second-story dorm window at Kansas University. He says, "Randy, will you pray with me?" And in my mind, my initial thought was, why are you calling me? I am a professional gambler, professional partier, a maniac. Maybe at that point in my life, probably was not as embedded in God's thought or in the idea of what traditional people would say God looked like. But the answer when he asked me, will you pray with me, was just an immediate yes. And I grew up Catholic, so I had some Catholic knowledge, and so I just prayed. And it didn't matter that I wasn't qualified. It didn't matter that I was not ordained. It didn't matter that I was not anointed. What mattered was that an individual was seeking compassion, and the person they were seeking it from was me. And so we prayed on the phone, and at the end of the call, I said, "I'm going to light a candle for your daughter." And I didn't want it to be just a platitude. So I went to my phone and I said, "Nearest church." And it said, "The nearest church is Unity Southeast in Kansas City." So I pulled into a parking lot of a church in the inner city and made my way to the front door and realized it was locked and nobody was there. But as I was heading to a car, a young lady, I call her young, she must have been in her 80s. She says, "Hello, how you doing? Are you looking for the church?" And I said, "Yes." And she says, "Well, I'm Reverend Gloria Holt. I'm the minister here. I'm glad I caught you. I was just on my way home." And so she asked me why I came. I said I wanted to light a candle for a friend of mine. She invited me in. Just like any good church leader did before I left, she took my name and number and followed up and said, "I'm so glad you came in. We'd love to have you come to a Sunday service and tell us about that little girl when she is healed." She just made the assumption that it was going to happen. And so from that she did get healed. I did go to that church. I did share with the congregation that their prayers were honored and they were well received. And before I knew it, I was attending every Sunday. I had been asked to do a couple Sunday services on the God of my understanding, which was a lot different than the God of their understanding at the time. I so grateful I found New Thought. So grateful I found something that resonates with me, and that and the knowing that God is not a white bearded man in the sky that grants wishes. I'm glad we can just let Santa Claus be that, and we can now have a presence and power that works within each and every one of us. And for me, I think that's the definition of what God is for me. Short story long, within a year, I was asked to attend ministerial school. Within 2 years, I had received my master's in divinity and a master's in theology. And since 2017, I have been the senior minister at Unity Southeast in Kansas City, the very church that I pulled into the parking lot of to light a candle. And so
That's awesome.
if that's not being called, if that's not being moved, if that's not being guided, then I don't know what is.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Yes.
Did you do your, you got this master's degree, was it from Unity? Was it from the Unity School?
Yes, I went to the Unity School, Unity Worldwide Spiritual Institute. I was actually in the first cohort of their online program when it started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So even though you were near, you could do a lot of your work online.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There one time visiting, I was getting a tour and they were showing me the prayer, ministry, and nearby was a room, and in that room, people were on their computers doing classes with other people all over the world or whatever. And so I got to see some of that in action. So what a powerful ministry. My first spiritual talk ever that led to my being where I am was at a Unity church, Christ Way Unity, in a little town in the Mid-South. But yeah, Christ Way Unity was the first, because they said, why don't you share your story? And so I did, and that was the first step toward where I am today. Christ Way Unity.
Love
Right,
that.
right. And my history is in unity as well. Yeah. So, what was there a defining moment when you realized that your ministry would extend beyond the traditional church walls?
Yeah, I think that I was never suited to be a traditional church wall minister. So when the dialogue and conversation came up about would I become the senior leader or the senior minister at Unity Southeast, I said absolutely. And these are some things that are non-negotiable if I'm going to take the position. And they were that we would be radically inclusive, socially responsive, and spiritually progressive. And at that point in my life, I don't think I realized how radically inclusive we would become, how socially responsive we would become, and how spiritually progressive we would become. And I'm so grateful that I set those boundaries up in the beginning, because it opened the door to doing church and doing God in a way that I never imagined was possible. And now I'm able to share that with hundreds and thousands of people each month.
And how do you do that?
The church itself, on Sunday morning, we have about 80 to 100 congregants that come in. But outside of Sunday, it was always my intention to make sure that the church became a community center. And so every evening and every night we house our unhoused in Kansas City. We also do a 20+ thousand pound food giveaway at the church. So food is delivered by semi. So we feed about 400 to 500 families every month that come in and get all of your groceries, from meats, fruits, vegetables, breads, anything they may need. They come and pick those items up. One time a month they come and get the bulk of it, and then they can just come back each week and seed the things that they need to replace. And so through that, we have thousands of people that walk through our door every month.
Did it surprise you that the type of boundaries that you set? Was it like something was speaking through you, and it's like, where'd that come from? Or did you?
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, and each one of the facets that I mentioned really came from spirit or from someone acting as spirit. I remember there was a Sunday morning, and family came in and they were hungry. And I said, well, let's go down and find you something to eat. And I started putting together what would probably be considered stone soup, just whatever I had in the closet and whatever I had in the refrigerator. And we were able to make a meal out of it. But when they left, I felt guilty. Like, they came to me for food. They came to me to be nurtured, and I didn't have anything to give them. And so I made a decision right there and then that each week I would make sure that we had a team of people that would bring in groceries and breakfast and items for people to take with them. We started with the idea of feeding 20 bagged lunches every Sunday. And within 6 weeks of doing that, we were giving away 100 bagged lunches every Sunday. And that worked out to become free breakfast every Sunday. You can stay for the service for an hour, followed by free lunch every Sunday. And now we feed hundreds of people every single week. So that's how that got started. The shelter got started because I was so blessed to have a divine soul really make me question everything. I was leaving the church one night in the middle of winter and looked into the parking lot and saw most of our garbage on the ground. And so I called my buildings and grounds guy and said, hey, earlier when you were here, I asked you to make sure that the parking lot was picked up. I'm noticing that it didn't get picked up. And he says, oh no, Randy, I picked up the parking lot. Everything went into the trash can. And I said, well, it must be raccoons, or it must be squirrels, or it must be. And he said, well, I can come back up and clean it up if you want to. And I said, no, I'm here. I'll go clean it up. And as I walked to the trash can to start loading it back up, I realized that someone had dumped out the ingredients of the trash can because they wanted to use the trash can as a space to live. It was cold, it was snowy, it was wet. And so they decided that they would empty the trash can and get inside. I had a dialogue with the two individuals that were in there, and I said, why don't you come inside for a few minutes and get warm? And they came inside, and we had coffee, and they told me their story. I told them mine, and I was tired. I had been at the church all day long. And I said, here's what we're going to do. The metal door downstairs locks itself behind. So why don't you spend the night in the church, and in the morning let yourself out? But I've got to go home. I've got my family. And the husband said, wait, you're going to leave us in your church overnight? And I said, yes. And he says, aren't you scared we're going to steal something? And I said, are you scared you're going to steal something? He said, no. And I said, then that's all I need. I said, just let yourself out in the morning. And I left. And I drove home, and I was so filled with the presence and the power. And I felt so good about it. And then in the back of my mind, I had that human conundrum of, I hope he doesn't steal something. I hope they don't. And so the next morning I got up extra early. I decided instead of going back to the church at 9, I would get in at 7:30 because I wanted to settle my human brain. And when I arrived, they were still there. But the kitchen was immaculate. The floors were mopped. The pews were wiped down. They wanted to do something in return. And I was so grateful to see the exchange of love that occurred, that I said, hey, here's the deal. I can't give you a key to the church, but if you're here at 7 o'clock tonight when I leave, you can stay in the church overnight and let yourself back out. I said, but once you walk up the doors locked behind you. So once you go out, you can't come back in. That evening, there were 4 people. And in the following evening, there were 8 people. And then I went to my board and said, what do you think about having volunteers? And we ended up getting about 14 volunteers. So everybody had to do it twice a month, and they spent the night in the church. And, you know, this winter from December 1st through February 28th, so 90 days. In those 90 days, we had over 7,600 stays in the church, so about 90 a night. So I'm really grateful that I happened to walk into the parking lot that night. Really grateful that a family came in and asked for a meal, because it's changed the trajectory of what we do at Unity Southeast in Kansas City. And I'll tell you what, I think that this is what community looks like. This is what love looks like. And for me, define God. That's a pretty good definition.
Yeah. Did you get any, did the city give you any troubles about permits or whatever?
You know, we didn't get in any issues. We first started doing this in 2019. The only time we got into issues was when the pandemic occurred. And we got our hands slapped a little bit in the fact that we could not have so many people in a building together. And that was their question. How are you going to keep all these people safe inside the building? And I said, well, I'd rather keep them safe inside the building and take a chance of what might happen than leave them outside the building and know exactly the direction in which it would go. They fought that, but there was a rule in Kansas City that as a church, you were not allowed to have congregants in your church when the pandemic got really thick. But the rule was you could have a minister, you could have your stream team, so your audio video guy, and your musicians. And so if you walk into Unity Southeast today, there are 211 tambourines that sit in the back corner in boxes. And every one of our unhoused became a musician. And we did midnight mass. So we started service at 9 o'clock. We spent about 15 minutes just getting centered and getting into meditative prayer. And then we stayed in the silence for 8 or 9 hours. And then in the morning, we did a little blessing and everybody went on their way, and that was church. And the city of Kansas City was aware of what we were doing. And they didn't like the fact that we had circumvented it, but we were doing nothing wrong. We were having service. Right. And that turned into the city of Kansas City calling me and saying, we found a young lady on the street. Can we bring her? We found a gentleman on the street. Can we bring her? We just found a young boy. You know, he'd been kicked out by his family because he told his parents he was gay. And in the middle of winter, they put him out on the streets. And so we went from a city regulation and inspectors saying we couldn't be open to being the drop-off point by the police and the fire station. and the city of Kansas City to, for people that they would find because they knew they'd be safe there. Knock on wood, we never had one occurrence of COVID the entire time we were doing this. Once again, that's what community looks like. This is what love looks like. And this is a great definition of what God is.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm amazed how many people that you support. That must take a lot of organization to have enough volunteers. And
it does. It takes a lot of organization. And the individuals we serve are treated with dignity, love, and respect. And so in return, they treat us with dignity, love, and respect. And so most of the organization, most of the volunteers, most of the people who come and work in our kitchen, most of the people who come and do security checks at the door are people who have stayed with us over time, that have gotten out and put themselves in a much better situation, and now they're giving back. So on any given night, about 70% of our staff are people who at one point stayed in the church that now work as volunteers when they can. So it has been an amazing endeavor, and we are so grateful and so honored that those who have made it through and came through now come back and serve. And so it makes it a little easier.
Do you get grant funding, or do food banks give you food?
So we have in Kansas. Yeah, in Kansas City, we have a community partnership with Harvesters, which is a community food kitchen. So we're able to go there and pick up food the majority of the time. When I talk about feeding, hundreds of families once a month, that is a Harvesters event that we team up with Harvesters on that day at the church. So they provide the majority or the bulk of the food that we give away on the fourth Friday of every month. And then I've built a really good relationship we have a couple grocery stores here, Hen House, Price Chopper, and Hy-Vee. Those three stores, when most of them that are in my area, when they have spoilage or food that they can't sell, or apples that are a day old or bananas that are a day old, we get them at the church. And so most of our food comes from that. And then when the city started bringing us bodies during the winter and bringing us souls during the winter, I requested that they start bringing us funds during the winter, and they were able to do that somewhat. They currently help us offset 30 guests a night. And like I said, there were days this winter, our highest day was 138 people in one evening that came through the church. So we're always looking for more ways to offset it. But it's amazing. We've always had exactly what we needed. And in the times that we didn't have what I thought we needed, we were able to restructure and find that by restructuring, we were able to do so much more with so much less. But we are abundant. We live in an abundant world. We live in an abundant universe. Supply is always making itself known to us if we're able to get quiet and listen to spirit and allow our eyes to be focused by not the human condition, but the divine understanding of who we are. It always works out. There are days that I wish it would work faster, easier, and more complete. But there has never been a day, or hasn't been a day in the last 7 years where I thought we don't have enough. I've always thought, man, we could do so much more, but never, we don't have enough.
It is currently 4:39 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. In the next 12 to 24 hours, let's say there's 70 people who want to contribute to your ministry, $5 or $10. How can they do it?
They could go to unitysoutheastnkc.org. Prominently placed on our front page is a way that they can donate. And, $5 is a lot. $10 is a lot. I think that if a lot of people did a little bit, nobody would have to do a lot. And so I'm always open to people hearing our story and hearing what we're doing and finding a way to give. What we've found is for about $23, we can house somebody overnight. So if 5 people gave $5, that's one more person that we can help tonight, be comfortable, be in a bed, get a good meal, get good rest, and wake up in the morning ready to start a new day with a new frame of reference of, here's one less thing I got to think about tonight because I know where I'm going to be. So now I can focus on getting the ID that I need to get. Now I can focus on finding the job that I need to get. Because the one thing that we find is all of our guests that stay with us, they end up being able to send their mail there. And sometimes that's the greatest barrier for the unhoused, is having a place that they can, quote unquote, call home.
Mm-hmm.
So our mailbox system is pretty interesting at the church. We may get mail for 80 to 90 people in any given day.
Right.
But the mailman understands what we're doing and everybody's on board.
Nice. Well, can you give me that web address one more time?
Yes, it's Unity Southeast NKC.
Is that SE?
No, just Unity Southeast spelled out.
Spelled out.
Unity Southeast NKC.org.
Does that stand for North Kansas City? Is that?
No, when I say NKC, I mean INKC.
Okay.
Oh.
So Unity Southeast NINKC.
Okay.
If you type in unitysoutheast.org, it will also get you there. If you type in unhoused KC, it will also get you there. But the church site itself is unitysoutheastnkc.org.
That's wonderful.
That's great.
So
Thank you.
the organizational piece of getting you mentioned beds, and I'm thinking, bedding and pillows and all that. How did that come about?
It came about because it needed to come about. So we started off with beds, and then we went to cots because they were more easily used. And now we actually use sleeping pads, which you can get like camping pads. Mm-hmm. So they roll up, so they're easy to store. And those come from Amazon. So if anybody out there, when you go to our website, there's also an Amazon wish list where you can buy a sleeping pad for someone to sleep on overnight, or a tent for someone to have when they leave, or Campbell's soup. So we have meals. But when you have 100 and some odd people in the church, some are sleeping in sleeping bags, some are sleeping in pads, some of them are sitting in chairs because we've run out of space. There have been times where my office at the church has become a playroom, and we've got pack and plays and babies in there. There are hallways in the churches that duplicate as bedrooms, because when we're full, I'm talking about being full. I mean, we're moving equipment, moving shelving, moving chairs so that people will have a place to sleep.
It's so inspiring. So inspiring.
It's great work. It's great work.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Butterworth and others said that what God does for us, God must do through us. And so you're certainly an amazing example of allowing God to be God in, through, and as human endeavor. What do you say, though, to people? Because I don't think they mean to be ungenerous. I don't think they mean to be unkind. But sometimes the new thought, I mean, I've gotten this blowback.
Yeah.
If you were really doing your job, you teach people how to manifest their own good, and you wouldn't have to give them stuff, blah, blah, blah. I usually say, how do you know that my sharing isn't their manifestation? But anyway, but when people are like, they're sort of fundamentalist about the principles, maybe that doesn't happen to you. But if it were to happen, what would you say?
I think the biggest thing I would say is, before you make a comment, why don't you come in and see how abundant we are and how blessed we are to be able to do this, and be able to say, hey, we have someone out in the cold, and now they have someplace to go. That is not about lack. That is about abundance.
Yes.
The one thing that I hear from ministers most often is, aren't you scared you're going to be known as the homeless church? Or aren't you scared you're going to be known as the gay church? Or aren't you scared you're going to be known as the black church? Or aren't you scared you're going to be known as fill in the blank church? And I'm like, no, I am excited about the fact that I get to be the gay church. I get to be the homeless church. I get to be the black church. I get to be the underserved church. I get to be the immigrant church. I get to be the undocumented church. Like, throw those names at me, because it's the minute you call me that, then I'm doing the work.
Right.
You know, and
Safe space is needed so much right now. There's nothing more. There's nothing important right now than safe space for vulnerable communities. And how amazing, how wonderful that you are that.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. If your church isn't messy, it's not church. I'm sorry. I can just tell you, if your church is not messy, it's a social club. It's not church. If your community is in need and you are sitting on a corner where you know your community is in need, and you're letting policy or procedure dictate what you do next, then you're a social club. You are a group of people who are following rules rather than allowing spirit to do what spirit does. And so bring me those people, whoever it is that says, this is not abundance, or you're putting more lack into the world. No, come spend 2 or 3 hours with me, and I promise you, you will walk out so abundantly filled.
Yeah.
More so than those who stay with us.
Exactly.
I always encourage people when they come to Kansas City, whether they're coming for a conference or whatever, come spend the night with us. Come spend 2 hours with us. Come serve soup with us, whatever it happens to be. And it will change your perspective of what abundance looks like and what lack looks like. And wow, if this is where you're at, then you need my church more than the people that I'm serving right now.
I want to come back to Kansas City now just to worship at your church. I mean, it just sounds so spirit-filled and so amazing.
And we have been so blessed. We have been so blessed. It's interesting because oftentimes we overlook how powerful of the work is being done here. And then I'll get a call where an American Idol contestant is in town, or a Voice contestant is in town, and they'll say, "Hey, I heard about your church through." And so this Sunday service, we will have Envy, who was on the Latin Voice, and we will have Nikki White, who was an American Idol contestant, both sharing the stage this Sunday because they both happen to be in town, and both have requested to come hang out at my church. And I'm like, this is what community looks like.
Right. That they want to help you. They want to give. They want to be part of this thing. That's amazing.
They want to see what's possible. They've heard about it. Now they want to see it in action. And what I have learned is people who come see it in action normally become action item people, and they go out and do something. And like I said, maybe what we're doing is not for you, but maybe it sparks something in you that is for you, that you can go out and do, because I can't do all things, but I can do some things.
Yeah.
You can't do all things, but you can do some things. So let's find out where the divinity is sparking in you and create something magical from that.
Cecil Williams was a Methodist minister in the 90s in San Francisco. Glide Memorial Church was his church. And he had a similar plan. There were so many hungry people, so many homeless people in San Francisco. And so he just opened the doors of the church. They were in decline. And so he decided he would grow the church by bringing in people who had needs. And so you'd have some lady in a fur next to some guy who didn't have an address. And he said, if you feed them, they will come. And so he just opened it up, feed people, first of all, on Sundays, then it was every day. And sure enough, the people in need just started, and his church exploded, but not with fancy people, with people in need. But he just thought that was the answer. That was what was meant to happen. And so, that when you're meeting needs, people show up for that. And then they give back from their abundance, like that family that cleaned your kitchen, and everything was perfect, and
And also, I'm thinking it's a wonderful demonstration of the law of circulation. The stores that give you the produce and other groceries and things, instead of wasting, they're circulating it. And I'm imagining that that's blessing their life too. They probably, all those people probably feel very, very blessed to be able to be part of something wonderful. It's great.
Absolutely.
Now, you work very hard and you work all the time. How do you get some time for self-care?
I'm really good at self-care. Believe it or not, I see what the power of rest does to our guests. And it's a reminder for me that sometimes I need to take shelter, and sometimes I need to be in a loving, caring space. My wife is amazing. I give her a lot of credit. The other thing is we we share. She is actually in Miami, Florida, and I'm in Kansas City. And so right now I do an 8-6 or a 9-5 split. So I'll do 9 days in Kansas City and then 5 days in Miami. And my 5 days in Miami is just rest, relaxation, and filling my cup. And then I come back to Kansas City and I do it over again every 2 weeks. And then she does the opposite. So when I'm here, she's here with me. And when she's there, I'm there with her. And so we found a way, and we've been together a long time now. And we found a way to be together every day except for 4 days a month, yet live in 2 separate cities.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. P.S. When you're in Miami, you're 26 miles from me. So just know
Yes.
that.
I'm gonna come. I'm in Miami a lot, obviously. I speak at Unity on the Bay frequently, but definitely on a Sunday that I'm not where I need to be, I'm definitely gonna come visit you, or I may just give you a call and we'll go have a lunch somewhere.
I'm saying lunch, cocktails, coffee. I'm close.
Amen. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So this brings you a lot of inspiration and fulfillment. And I think that's what a life of service is about.
Yeah.
Not where your church is or how big your church is or if you even have a church, but rather it's about service. And I think about the master teacher. He didn't hang out with all the rich people. He hung out with
the pretty people or the messy people.
Disenfranchised, hungry, ill, and see beyond that, and taught them through the example rather than just preaching.
And because he saw the God in them, their circumstances got better. Yeah, they thrived because he saw the good in them. Yeah, that's our job.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So grateful that you guys invited me onto the show today. I'm so grateful just to spend time with you. And you were asking earlier, like, how do you fill your cup? This is how I fill my cup. Being around amazing people who have walked the walk that I'm walking. I know your story, Bishop Durrell, and I know you're doing amazing things where you're at, and that you keep holding the light for people too. And so I feel like this is a great way to sit down with somebody and say, okay, let's fill each other's cups, because we know that there's work to do.
Yes.
And there are people who they're just starting out, or they're retired, or they have a small rural something going on or whatever. And you're just like, you're here to show them that wherever you are, whatever your circumstances, you can do something. And the something you do is going to make a big difference to somebody. Yeah,
absolutely.
Great witness. Well, we want to hear more from you, and especially if there's anything you just like burning to share with us. We've asked you a lot of questions. Maybe you just have something you want to say that we haven't asked you about. But before we get to that, I need to remind everybody that this is Divine Science Everywhere, and we're on the New Thought Media Network.
Welcome back. Reverend Randy, do you have anything that you would like to share with us before we close the broadcast?
Yeah, I would just love to say to each and every person that's watching, each and every person that's listening, each and every person that will watch the recording when this is done. You are being called, and you are being anointed, and you are being asked, and you are being guided to do something. Are you open and receptive to what that is? And are you willing to do something small, even if you're not willing to do something large in this moment? I ask my congregants as well as all of our guests when they come in, do you know who you're being called to be? Do you know what you're being called to do? Do you hear what you're being called to say? And are you being guided to whom you're supposed to say it to? And by living under those 4 questions, I've seen a lot of amazing individuals step into life in a way that they never thought was possible. And by allowing and encouraging and guiding people to just start by doing something small, oftentimes they will call me later and say, you won't believe the big thing that I just did. Because it is where what we appreciate appreciates. And so I just ask, if you're watching, if you don't know what to do next, start by helping me do what I'm doing. And I promise you, I'm available to you. I'm available to anybody who's watching this program that says, hey, I'd like to figure out what's mine to do. Call me or reach out to me, because of the fact that I've been in rooms with people who have guided me. I'm here today to do some amazing things, and I'm wanting to give that back to anyone and everyone that will listen. You don't have to be a minister. We started this call by me saying, I took a phone call from someone and said, wait a minute, I'm not religious, I'm not ordained, I'm not anointed, I'm not appointed, I'm not anything. And come to find out, I was all those things, and so are you. If you're watching this program right now, you are also ordained, you are also anointed, you are also being called to do something amazing. And whether you have a name for God or you have no name for God, just know that there is a presence and a power that is fighting to do amazing things. The question is it fighting you, or is it fighting the fact that you just won't listen?
Right.
And so go out and do amazing things. I promise you, you can. And I also promise you, you will, if you just open and ready.
Now, undoubtedly, you have great forensic skill, but also what super communicates with people is the heart. Is people feel love, no matter how you say it and how many communicate, they feel it. And I bet that's what happens when people hear you, with or without the forensic skill. I bet they really connect with the love bit. If people want to check in and hear some of your talks at your church, is that on your website, or is that on Facebook?
Yeah.
Is that YouTube?
They can go to our website. They can go to Facebook. Unity Southeastern Kansas City is our Facebook page. They can go to YouTube. We're on YouTube, but I don't think the latest ones have been going on YouTube. So I will say go to the website and go to Facebook to see our talks. Or more importantly, if you're listening, invite me. I'm willing to come talk in your community and move the needle for you. And in exchange, amazing things will happen, and I get to amplify the work that I love to do already.
Well, you're going to get a Florida invitation for sure.
Okay. Well, I'm there.
Because I know I can get you pretty close, so I'm going to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
And our guest next week is Reverend Jerry Hobby. And until next week, remember that this is Divine Science Everywhere. And divine science is within you and around you at all times.